A night of lost innocence. Once, there was a young woman named Elena, living in a small town nestled among the hills, where everyone knew each other's stories and where life seemed simple, yet full of hidden complexities. Elena was known for her kind heart, her soft smile, and the grace with which she navigated life. She had always been the dutiful daughter of her parents, loved and cherished by all who knew her. She had a quiet, innocent beauty about her that shone brighter than anything else. But there was something within Elena, something she had kept hidden, a secret she had promised herself she would protect until the right time. It wasn't just about love. It was about her identity, about how she saw herself as a woman. Her virginity, a symbol of her purity, was precious to her, something that she believed would only be given away when the time was right, when the man she loved truly loved her in return. One autumn evening, Elena found herself at a friend's party in a nearby town. It wasn't the kind of gathering she usually attended, but she wanted to experience life beyond her quiet, sheltered world. The air was crisp, the moon hung like a silver coin above the hills, and the laughter from the house echoed into the night. Elena felt out of place, yet there was a certain exhilaration in her chest. Maybe this was what she had been waiting for, a night to remember, a break from her routine life. Among the guests was Mark, a man who had been part of her childhood memories. He had been the boy who made her laugh, the one who held her hand when they were children, the one who had a way of making the ordinary feel extraordinary. They had grown up together, but as the years passed, their paths diverged. He had become someone she could no longer easily define: charismatic, reckless, and yet strangely familiar. His deep, soulful eyes were the kind that seemed to look straight into her heart, making her feel both vulnerable and seen. As the night wore on, Elena and Mark found themselves alone in a quiet corner of the house, away from the sounds of music and laughter. The conversation started innocently, but as time passed, it grew deeper. There was something intoxicating about being with him again, as though the years between them had melted away. Elena felt as though she were drowning in the warmth of his presence. She had always trusted him, but tonight, there was a magnetic pull between them that felt impossible to resist. One moment, they were laughing, and the next, their faces were close to close. Elena felt her breath quicken, her heart pounding as Mark's fingers lightly brushed against hers. His touch was gentle at first, a soft invitation, but it soon became more urgent, more insistent. She could feel the heat between them, the longing, the way their bodies were drawn together as if they were magnets. Before she could fully process what was happening, they were kissing, and the world around them seemed to disappear. In that moment, everything felt right, yet utterly wrong. Elena knew, deep within herself, that this wasn't how she had imagined losing her innocence. There was no love, no sense of connection beyond the physical attraction that had taken over them both. She tried to pull away, but Mark held her tighter, whispering promises that only made her feel more lost. The night spiraled out of her control. Mark's touch became more forceful, more demanding. Elena's mind screamed for her to stop, to push him away, but her body was paralyzed by confusion and fear. It was a blur of passion and hesitation, and before she could stop it, she found herself lying next to him in a bed, the weight of her decisions hanging in the air like a suffocating fog. The moment passed, and she was left in its wake, feeling numb and disconnected. Mark, too, seemed distant afterward, as if the act had been nothing more than a fleeting indulgence for him. Elena lay there, her body trembling, as she tried to come to terms with what had just happened. There was no tenderness, no love, just a cold emptiness that filled the space between them. Mark left without a word, as though nothing had happened. Elena stayed in the bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind spinning with shame and confusion. The walls of the room seemed to close in on her. She felt like a stranger to herself, as if she no longer knew who she was. Her virginity, the thing that had defined her for so long, was gone, and she could not reclaim it. It was as if a piece of her soul had been ripped away, and she had no idea how to piece it back together. The hours passed in silence, but Elena's mind never stopped racing. She thought about her parents, who had raised her to be strong, to uphold the values they believed in. How could she face them now? How could she ever look at herself in the mirror again? She had always prided herself on her purity, her ability to remain untouched by the world's temptations. Now, she felt tainted, broken, as though she had failed herself. In the days that followed, Elena's life seemed to unravel. She could no longer go about her daily routine with the same ease. Her friends noticed the change in her, the way she no longer smiled as brightly, the way she avoided looking people in the eye. The weight of her secret pressed down on her chest, suffocating her. She became reclusive, retreating into herself, her sorrow a constant companion. Mark never reached out. It was as if he had forgotten her, or perhaps never cared in the first place. Elena's heart hardened with bitterness, a sorrow she couldn't shake. She longed for him to acknowledge what had happened, to show some sign that he understood the weight of that night, but he never did. As the weeks passed, Elena realized that the sorrow she carried was not just because of what had happened, but because of what she had lost in herself. She could no longer see the world through innocent eyes. She had crossed a line, and though she longed to undo it, she knew that such things were beyond her control. The purity she had once held so dear was gone, and in its place was a hollow ache that could not be filled. Her parents, though loving, sensed her distance. They asked what was wrong, but Elena could never bring herself to tell them the truth. She couldn't bear the thought of disappointing them, of seeing their disappointment in her eyes. So, she kept the secret, nursing her sorrow in silence. The years passed, but Elena's grief never truly faded. She learned to carry it with her, a constant shadow that followed her every step. She found love again, but it was never the same. She had been changed, and though her heart longed for healing, it always felt as though a part of her would forever remain lost. In the end, Elena's story was one of quiet sorrow. It was not one of grand tragedies, but of a young woman who had lost something precious, not to an external force, but to the choices made in the heat of a single night. It was a sorrow that she would carry with her, quietly, for the rest of her days, a reminder of the fragility of innocence and the complexity of the human heart.